Since you don't get too comfortable. All right. Just before we get into the real demo, since we have at least one brand new person, at least brand new to us, so he hasn't heard the jokes yet. So, otherwise, I could just list which number it was, and they would laugh. Depending on that information. The way this works is within a few weeks you're going to hear most of what you're going to hear. It's not really designed that week 1 will be this and this, and week 3 is such and such. Basically, I try to cover the necessary elements in a few weeks, and then see where people are, and kind of tailor things to where people are missing things, or if they're already getting things. Go on to whatever the next useful subject seems like it should be. There's no way to cover in one demo everything you'll ever need to know about drawing. If there was, then I'd do it, because I'm like that. But everything that you have in a drawing as a problem is available to solve in the head. Every two-dimensional drawing problem is available in the head. Everything about shapes, everything about controlling the value of your paint, everything about your edges. The only thing that's not in there is a specific element is if you're drawing hands or landscapes or Buicks. Obviously, those details are going to change. The information that you're constructing, but the rules about how to make something turn very, very round, or how to make something turn angular, how to make the lights group together, how to make the darks group together, all those rules are exactly the same. So that's why we start with those rules, because once you get a handle on those, then we can start fussing about the construction of the eye, or the planes of the head, or the hand, or whatever the construction problem is. So the first job is playing with how you see, not how you draw. These are examples of, I don't know what kind of lighting reflection you guys are getting. And some of you guys have already heard these things before, but I find that it's usually the 27th or 28th time where somebody goes, oh, that's what he meant. So it never hurts to redo it. But in the category of learning how to see, these are diffuse lighting. These are one source light. The difference on a two-dimensional level with diffuse light and one source light is that one source light, things are much more clear and specific, and you could almost take those shapes and cut them out with scissors. Mm-hmm. The shapes in here are soft and fuzzy and diffused, and the elements that have hard edges are the items that the local color gives them a hard edge, but the lighting doesn't do it. Mm-hmm. If there was a sculpture of this, it would be very, very confusing to work with, as is working with this, which has got its own light and dark pattern. From a sculptural standpoint, one source lighting is the best for explaining the form with. It's the best for showing that it's a round thing or a square thing. This lighting has all the same rules. It's just you've got 900 different light sources, so the rules get scattered all over the universe. That's why we're starting with something like with our model with one source light, so that we have some control over what's going on with the shapes. So the first thing is learning how to see, not looking up there, seeing eyelashes and pupils and whatever detail is, but looking at first at triangles and squares and circles and two-dimensional things. This is what the camera sees. The camera doesn't know what it sees. It doesn't look at it and say, oh, it's concrete or cotton or flesh or hair. It just sees light and dark. Mm-hmm. And this has been pushed. This is just actually more the way it's best to start with a drawing, a white light group and a dark group, which isn't necessarily black because you don't want to use up the black value until you're ready to put in the accents. But in a nutshell, you're looking for the puzzle piece. This one is 80% light and 20% dark. This is, the other way, it's 90% dark and 10% light. There's the same rules. This is a really, really crappy Xerox sort of concept, but it tells you that it couldn't even distinguish where the head ended in some areas, or where the shadow on the head merged with the shadow on the body. or the dark object in front of him, or here, the shadow under his head with the shadow on the shirt. So half of the battle in the beginning is learning how to see, recognize what is happening, so that you can decide how to design it. In the beginning, your job is to try to figure out how to repeat what you're seeing. Then your job is to figure out how to embellish it and make it better. But usually people are told, don't draw from photographs, don't copy, don't use the two-dimensional things. It's fine to use the two-dimensional things if it's towards the end of getting control over it, so you can then make really amazing three-dimensional stuff. So you don't want to be unaware of the fact that there's two-dimensional shapes there, because that's part of your get it solved in the first 10-minute section. So do the knowns, do the stuff that you have control over first, so that you can then spend your construction money on whether or not the eye looks like it's got 3 dimensions to it. Does the nose feel like it's got a top, 2 sides, and a bottom? But you can't do any of that stuff until you at least get the stuff on the paper. So you're always working on a 2-dimensional surface. Being able to handle what the 2-dimensional shape is doing is a big part of it. And if you guys are dealing with Photoshop or some more 3D program, then to hell with you. But for the rest of you guys that are working in 2-dimensional mode, the trick is, this is one source lighting, but there's a lot of halftones involved. The trick with this is to squint your eyes down until you see this, or this, until you get something that's easier to control. So squint and edit everything down to an easier problem to solve. So if I look at his eye, for instance, and think in these terms, break my pencil. Get that 2-dimensional shape of the upper lid. What's the shape of the dark? What's the shape of the lower lid? Squint. And what's the shape of the dark here? What's the shape, the light of the cheek? What's the shape of the light in here between the eyes? Squint. I would keep this in my light family just because it's easier to control. The shape of the dark. Shape of the light shape between here and the lip. What's the shape on the lower lip? And the light shape between here and the cheek. And none of this is rocket science. It's just a matter of recognizing what your tools are. So if you can at least get the 2-dimensional shape down on the paper, then you can start pushing and pulling and saying, I need to make this rounder, I need to make this squarer, whatever. Idealizing, drawing beautiful eyes or whatever, that comes after you have some control over the shape. So you should be able to think about this, drawing it upside down, whatever. It's just a matter of looking for the light shapes and the dark shapes, and before that, even making a decision about what is a dark shape and what is a light shape. So squinting at it until you see something clear. If you can get that nice and clear, then we can spend our money on the planes and the angles and the architecture, pushing the 3D of it. But first, we've got to get a handle on the 2D. The other thing that's really critical about organizing your flat information is keep a handle on your values. Don't go to black yet. Give yourself a limit. Give yourself 4 values max: a white, a light gray, a dark gray, and a black, and a broken pencil. Give yourself a white and a black, and then 2 steps of equal jump. But squint at your reference, look at your model. Everything is going to be in the light group or the dark group. Give yourself a real limit to the values so that you can spend your energy on the quality of the shape, and then second, the edge. Should it be a round thing or a square thing? But if you have the values under control, then you can make something cohesive about your shapes. Then you can decide whether or not it's supposed to be angular or round. Let's say if I tell you everything now, you want it to come back. So I'll make sure I leave something vague and undefined. So this when I squint at this, we've got the concept of looking for the 3D objects, which is important to know how to make a structure out of. But you've also got the idea of the 2D. And look at the leftover light shape. Look at the negative shape. So this is copying. This is, but it's part of the things that are available to you to get your foot in the door on the drawing. Then you look at this and you say, oh, okay, I've got the shapes down there, but now I need to refine them a little bit. Now I can show that this is a little bit more round, and I can keep this nice and square. Or you can go in with your eraser and clean up the light edge. So the more I can make the shape hold together, the more control I'll have over it. The more I can do subtle things with my edges, and the more I can push either soft, round, fuzzy things, or I can make it more angular and Mount Rushmore. We'll get into the rules about edges and things later, about hard edges and soft edges, but right now just think of the logic of the fact that it's actually the light that creates the form, not the shadows. It's not the shading that makes the form. It's how fast you go into the shadow. So if the light goes very, very slowly into the shadow, we're told that it's a round thing. And if the light goes very, very quickly into the shadow, we're telling the viewer that it's an angular, a hard, crisp, angular thing. So this is just in service to the edge of the light. The light is what really matters. The shadows are just there so that you can make sense out of your edges. Most people don't think that way. Most people look at the model and they see an eye and they shade things. They see the nose and they shade things. Don't draw the shadows, draw the lights. Pay attention, pay attention to the light puzzle pieces. That's what's going to make your drawing make sense. If you're drawing, this, for instance, and you're drawing an eye and lashes and things, you're drawing a diagram of what's going on rather than drawing the impression that we see up there. Mm-hmm. We're drawing what's going on in the back of our head rather than what's going on visually, two-dimensionally. Back to our 2D idea, it doesn't distinguish between the shadow or the glasses. It just, whatever is a dark thing, it makes a dark thing. Whatever's a light thing, it makes a light shape. Mm-hmm. Or it loses it. This is what we see when we squint way down. This is the max of 4 values: white, light gray, dark gray, black. You can get the whole impression with those 4. A little bit of softening the edges here and there, and you can get to this. So this gives you control. If usually what I have people going way too dark in here and nowhere near dark enough in here. So what they do is they mix up the values. Mm-hmm. So that's why you want to keep squinting at the model and organizing things into nice, neat groups so that you can make dynamic, ballsy brush strokes and construction.
So you're consistently going back to that image.
Right. Just the only difference I would say is it doesn't need to be black. That's but if you think of it as, is it part of my dark family or part of my light family, and then just make everything that's in the darks a little too dark, everything that's in the lights a little too light, so that you're really separating the two universes. Mm-hmm. There's things about edges and construction and the planes of the head and idealizing the eye. All that stuff's important, but the first problem is just getting a handle on our two-dimensional paint so that we can then do that stuff. So I'm not going to get into all those things, because I find if I go over more than 10 or 12 things at a time, people kind of get lost and miss things. But always turn things kind of into black and white. Ignore the color for now. You're not going to get much color out of your charcoal pencil unless you've got a special one. But pay attention to the dark shapes that actually happen and the light shapes that actually happen. That's the thing you're constructing. Even with the hair, you're looking looking for the hair as a series of light and dark puzzle pieces. You can look at the whole thing and then break up the edge, but what's the shape of the light look like? You can go in there with your eraser, as you know, think of it as light paint. But that's why you want to use the side of your lid, so that you have a big fat brush stroke and you can cover a lot of ground. And then last, the best pen and ink guys that work, with line, they think tonally. They think about the paint. They think about the edges that they're suggesting and the line weight. So where line weight comes from is first analyzing what the shadow and the light and shadow is doing, and then whether or not the form needs a little bit more help to be have more punch, more weight to it. So let's go ahead and do the real demo, since we don't want the model to pass out while we're... but anyway, now you know what I know, so let's... that'll be a test afterwards. Okay, so this will be for 25. And we'll turn you this way a little bit. Okay, cool. All right, so look at the big shape. The first thing you have to do is figure out where to put everything. So whether it's the first 2 minutes or the first 20 minutes or the first hour and a half, spacing and placing where to put the elements is the first problem. So look at the big shape the head makes. Look at the average angle of the brow, the average angle of the middle of the brow, the middle of the chin. That's right, lock them out. Simplify the eye, simplify. I just want to look for the shapes and the approximate angles of the forms before I sculpt the forms. There's a rock out of my pencil. How big is the light shape on the chin? Squint. I'm going to lose a lot of this into the shadow, but if it helps me to space and place things, we'll locate where the eye goes. Squint, big shape of the eye. Just give yourself a key. Don't let it get any darker than this. If it does, lighten it up. Just get some control over your paint. That light shape. Squint at her, squint at your drawing. See what you can do to simplify the two-dimensional shapes. Get the light shape on the white of the eye. Now think of it like blocking in a painting. You're locating where everything goes so that you can then do a beautiful painting over your block in. Let's look at the big shape. Squint at her, squint at your drawing, look for the leftover shape of the forehead there. Now think in terms of simplification so that you can do a great painting over it. Think in terms of editing so you can do a nice painting. The second phase will be filling in your darks and making sure your light shapes are clear. Then it's all about honing and designing. But right now I'm just trying to figure out where to put everything. And then we'll make sure that our light and darks are organized, and then we'll make sure that they're nicely designed. Catch that. Locate where the tear duct goes. Get that light shape on the upper lid. Get that light shape on the cheek. And if it's out of value, or if the only reason you want this nice and flat is so you can see what your shapes are. You can do whatever you want as long as as long as it's not more interesting than the shapes. Squint. Look at the big shape the whole form makes here. Simplify the angled jaw. If the dark shape is confusing, see if you can make the light shape next to it make sense instead. Or vice versa, whatever solves the problem. Just locate where the front plane of the lip goes there. The planes and the construction help give you some more ammo about what you should be seeing, so that in cooperation with those two-dimensional shapes, you have some idea what makes them happen. The light shape on the chin. Fill in your darks. If you get the shapes right, you can hire some kid off the street to come and fill in your darks. It's not. That's the second issue. That's just, getting it flat so you can see if the shapes work. Squint at her. Keep this simple. All of the hair is dark pattern. Even this shine on her hair when I squint is part of the dark family.
Even in the finished drawing?
Yeah, it'll be the lightest thing in the hair, but when I squint way down, this stuff, except maybe right there, just barely catches enough light to be considered part of the light family. And that's because it is light. It's the the leftover negative shape there. But if I were to, if I had to make this a black and white photograph, this would be the lightest part of the hair, but it still wouldn't have anything to do with these lights. There's no competition there. That's why loading the C is the big phrase that we push, because if you can get that down, then you can have a little bit more gravity, a little more veracity with the shapes you're designing.
So that tone that you're laying down right now, is that considered your middle tone?
This?
Yeah.
It's my dark pattern. I don't know what the actual dark is going to be until I spot a couple blacks. So I just know that it's dark enough to be my dark. It doesn't have to be a something that I can't adjust. I just want to make sure that it's clearly different than the lights. Finished with blocking in my big shape. I want to design a good-looking shape. Everything is a design question. Just cover the big shape in here. And all of this is dark pattern. Squint at your drawing, squint at her. Think about what it looks like from 20 feet back. And let's see. Get the big shape of the shoulder. I want a nice decoration here for the vignette to end this with. And once we've got the big poster, the block in where we want it, we've got the light and dark in there, then we can start honing. Then we can start squinting at each area and refining it, making it more correct. Making the dark shape in here work and the dark shape, in each area. So as a painting, you're blocking in the big shape, and then you start breaking it up into smaller and smaller refining pieces. Squint and get the angle of the lid there, get the light shape on the upper lid. Squint, this is all light pattern, so it's, I want to make sure that this is part of my light gray group, not the dark gray group. Look at the shape that the edge of the hair makes. Don't worry about the strands too much if you want to put a couple strokes in there, but mostly block in the hair as big flat patterns minus strokes, and then look for where you can put in just the best one or two accents, rather than trying to draw every line in. And then this shadow, I'm going to push a couple of rules, like the cast shadow from the pencil here gets soft and fuzzy as it gets farther away. I'm going to do the same thing here. So I'm going to look for this to be crispest here and less as it goes away. Anything to make it not, even though we know we're doing a puzzle piece, that's how we hide it, is we look for a way for the edge to change from harder to softer.
To give it that round feel.
To get away from the cutout feel. Yeah, because the cutout feel is just the beginning. It's just the start, but it doesn't have the 3D to it. It's just the way that we get a handle on it. Like when I look at this cast shadow from her hair, the crispest part of that cast shadow is right here. And the reason that's crispest is because the hair's closest to her head there. There's more distance between here and here. And it's also closest to the light, pretty much. Squint, all this is dark pattern. You know, as I say, if the dark thing is confusing, see if you can make sense out of the light shape. And you can use this is a soft pencil, so it's smearing a little easier than I'd like. So you're going to avoid too much smear there. Squint, and I want to look at the light shape. A little crisper on the edge here. Squint, crisper on the edge in here. This is a more cohesive puzzle piece. And we'll just lighten all this for the sake of keeping it under control for right now. Squint, a little firmer on the edge in one or two places. Crisp edge in here, and don't go black in here. Don't use up the accent value where you don't want a lot of attention. Get that white of the eye to be the right shape. Got to get the highlight in there so that you get the big bucks. Squint, a little crisper edge here. And things inside the shadow, keep them a little bit more soft and fuzzy. You know, don't outline the things in the shadow. Mm-hmm. Part of what makes a shadow look like a shadow is that it's hard to make out the details. Which is the other reason you're squinting at her and squinting at your drawing, trying to figure out what the effect is, rather than what you know should be there. This light shape moves over a little bit. Soft edge on the as it turns around her cheek there. We'll lose all this stuff in the shadow here. A little firmer. Firmer on the light shape here. Just looking at the edge of my pattern. Squint. Just check out the edge. That's the thing that really matters. And then if you're really dying to get the halftones in there, keep them way too light. Really, anything that's in the light, overdo how light it is, because the charcoal is just going to get dirty real fast. So better to have nothing in the lights than too much. And finish organizing this value everywhere. Squint. This paint by numbers. I've got this as my dark value. I want to use it everywhere I've got my darks. Got a little bit of decoration in there. We'll play with that. But for now, we're just setting up the painting. Just get the edge. You know, if you've gone too far, you can take your lights and pull them into your darks and fix the edge. It's just getting your light shape and your dark shape, and then making a beautiful edge between the two. Squint at her, squint at the drawing. This is all one flat pattern, or more like a flat pattern. Get rid of these things that are going to mess up the paper here. Turn just a hair to your left. Okay, thanks. Can't really see the edge of her hair easily in some areas. It's okay if we lose some of it in the background. Not everything has to be cut out. You can use this lost and found to make it look more realistic by having certain things pop when other things don't. And these accidental darks, I want to take them out so that they're not, where I don't want them. Or I can go in last and put in my actual real darks. Squint, where does the real black actually go? Here. But you don't want to use up that accent before you need it. You're still looking for shades. And whether it's hour 5 or hour 30 of the drawing, you can always go back. You can always go back to the earlier flattening your values, keeping your lights and your darks organized. Just knowing that it's an option is your, the first stage. Maybe you'll spot a little bit of the black that's up in here. Keep the values to a minimum, and then you can use all the edges you want. You can go to town with all the areas and make each of the boundaries of the edge, each shape, the star. Don't put black here. You hint it a little bit, but don't keep the black where in the eyes, the hair, touching the mouth. Be real judicious about the accents. Or the rocks in your pencil. And sit back from your drawing, look at it from a distance, try to see what big effect is. What do you see from a distance is what you're first want to make work. Then you can get in closer and work on smaller shapes. So squint at her, squint at my drawing. If we want to hint at the silhouette of her in there, you don't have to do it everywhere. You can just choose somewhere to separate her and then have other areas get lost so that it looks a little bit more lost and found rather than everything cut out. It's more the way we see things. We don't see everything in focus all at once. If you look at the eye, the rest of the head looks out of focus. If you look at the nose, the rest of the head looks out of focus. You have to, paint in terms of the overall effect you're going for, not not rendering each thing as if it's the only thing in the universe. Let's organize all of this. Squint. This I need to knock it all down. Squint. And my poster in here. Where's the lightest light? And in the shine, it's here, so we'll let this fall off a little bit. Decorate the edge. If we've messed the shape up, we'll go back and get the shape that we want, and then go back to the true value. But every area, I want to see if it needs a little bit more interest. Lost my highlight there, so that's better. Squint. All this gets lost into the shadow pattern. Keep an eye on my light shape there. Squint. There's a stronger dark pattern here. But if I keep a control over my values, then I can really control the shapes. Just depends on how far I want to take the painting. But right now I'm just trying to get everything up to a common level. Squint. What's going on with this dark shape in here? A little narrower. Too much. You know, unless you have a hole in the paper, there's nothing you can't fix. I've heard that from a lot of people where they, I had it right, but then I screwed it up. It's like, we'll go back and fix it. So, beef up the edge of the shadow pattern a little bit. A little bit of variety in the edge there. Don't make it one consistent outline. A little softer in here. Maybe a little bit more of a hint of the reflected light in there. Don't overdo the reflected light though. And any area that looks dirty, flatten it out, glaze it lighter. Charcoal doesn't let you really go exactly correctly with the halftones. You have to kind of underplay everything in the lights. Get the light shape here. And once you've got the big shape, then each area just needs to be designed. Now, are we dealing with light pattern or dark pattern? And then do I like the shape? That's all we're trying to figure out. And some of it, you try it out, and if you go too far, you pull it back a little bit. Just organize your paint. Think about what it would look like if this was photographed on a book cover and shrunk down. Would the big thing work? Or do you need to posterize your drawing a little bit more and organize the shapes? Get that little light shape to work. So many pencils you can go through in one sitting. I like the softness of that brand, but I think it ain't working. Yeah. Yeah, some of them are really nice, but they're just so brittle. Yes, it's just too much. Looks like she's got, 4 o'clock stubble there. Too much value. So every now and then look at it like the kid on the street. You're not, you don't know anything about edges and values. You're just saying, what's the impression? And if the impression comes across that it's dirty or, the wrong story, then you've got to adjust your values. But every area is just how do we design the paint? How do you craft each area so that each area has the right amount of design? Yeah, thunder. And then without her, well, let's fill this in a little bit more. Look at her. Look at the drawing. Look at her. Squint at the big effect and see what things are working. And you've always got that moment where you stand back and you go, "Oh my God, how did I miss that?" When you get too close to the thing. So every now and then, while she's posing, stand back, look at your drawing from 10 feet back, and look at her from 10 feet back, and see if the big stuff is working. Then you can start looking for the smaller things. Then you can use the tip of your brush there for the super fine details. But one problem at a time. And a little stronger with the eyebrow. Okay, thanks. Go ahead and take a break. Then without her, don't add things and subtract things. Just clean it up. Just take the areas that are too choppy or not flat enough or telling you the wrong thing and simplify them. Fill in your darks. Use the break time for maintenance or getting away from your drawing and seeing how somebody else has solved the same thing that you're struggling with. See if there's some solutions. Or take comfort in the fact everybody's struggling with the same thing. Whatever floats your boat there. But getting the values under control is the big deal so that you can spend your energy on whether or not you like the craft of the shapes that you have. If you've got the values all out of whack, then you can't actually see what you're drawing. So that's why there's so much emphasis on just getting the paint under control first. Yeah, this stuff's very soft. The problem with soft is that it gets dirty real fast. The good thing about soft is that you don't have to really press hard to get the shapes to work. So for those of you guys that want to use the hard pencils first because you can keep it light, the one problem is you have to work so hard to get something out of it that it's hard to be subtle about the design of your shape. So what you're hoping for is something in the middle, something that's firm enough that you can keep it light, but enough room to go black with it so that you can actually go to the full range of value. And whatever the shape makes. Anyway, now you know what I know. Can't fire me, I quit. As the music swells.